Hello everyone, today we have a very special guest. His name is Sukhi Wahiwala. He's an entrepreneur, a mentor and investor. So today we'll be talking about business, about investors and everything. So Sukhi, welcome to Pricemania Academy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
It's been a pleasure and a humble honor to be here as well and assist.
Yeah, I know about you. You became a millionaire very early, like 21. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
So maybe if we can start with your story, how you started with business, how you started with your first company, maybe how was your beginning?
Wow, what a lovely question. So, in context of my life, how I've actually been humbled and blessed to be in a position where I can actually today have some kind of sharing back with individuals, giving them some kind of structure, strategy, and step-by-step analysis of the world, whether it's starting a business, growing a business, and things of this sort of nature. This is kind of, to be honest with yourself, kind of afforded to me from my parental line. So, for example, since 1760s, we have a history of being in business. So 7 generations, and I'm the 8th generation, is already in business or has been in business. So the context of how I started was very simple because it was inevitable.
Right.
Whatever I was going to be doing, I've come from a family. I'm one of 8 children. I'm the youngest, actually, and I've kind of seen all the elders, all the brothers and sisters, siblings, do things. They've all been in business at some stage. So I've been kind of lucky to be nurtured very well by all of them. My key players themselves have been pinnacle individuals. Have been my parents, both my mother and my father. I have a very strong bond with them as a son. And my early journey of cracking that first million, I would suppose, is probably something specific to do with my mother and father. So if I can share a little bit of a journey
Sure.
there. What happened is when I was around 8, 9 years old, my very first business started, in theory. Now, most people will think a 9-year-old business or 8-year-old doing business. It was true. It was in school. In the UK, what we did, I'm a born and bred British Sikh. My religious denomination is actually being Sikh. So we have a very high sort of philosophy around helping the world and helping as many people as we possibly can. So we used to have these little stickers. They used to be football stickers, of the characters.
Right.
Football players, their badges, etc. And then you'd buy this big book that you'd stick them all into. And what happened is that I had a little bit more financial capacity than most of my school friends. And what happened is that we used to swap the stickers. But I got my book filled quite quickly. So I had a completely full book, and then I had lots of spares, or what we call doubles, or stickers.
Right.
And they used to take them to school with an elastic band. And my friends used to say to me, can I swap with you? Can I give you this card? Can you give me this card? And I did to start off with. And then I realized that if I just swapped one for one, they were getting the benefit of this, and I wasn't. I was just going to have all of the less desired cards, the rubbish cards, and all the good ones would be given. So what I decided to do was to say, the same money you pay the shop, you pay me, and I'll give you not 5 cards, I'll give you 3 cards of your choice. So I was in essence profitable by 2 cards. And I still played games. I mean, that's how it started. And I used to come home with £1 in those days, or £5 over a period of a week or something, and give it to my mum. My mum is like a super engine when it comes to keeping things orderly and structured and in a strategy. She really is the pinnacle of that sort of energy, and I've learned all of what I have inside that ability to hold things consistently through from my mum. So what we did basically is I'd come home and give her the money, and the first time I gave her some money, she said to me, she goes, "Are you doing something naughty? Meaning, are you bullying people or not being nice to them? Something is not right." And I said, no, not at all. This is what I'm doing. So I shared the business with her. She said, well done. Okay, carry on. So what I ended up doing was building a business. And in those days, to have 40 to 80 pounds in your bank, I'm talking 1980, 83, 84 sort of time. To have that sort of money in your hand was quite a substantial amount for an 8, 9-year-old at least. So, a story short, that was really my first business. So I had the first taste of trade, should I say, of sharing, giving one thing for another. And the real journey started when I was schooled in business all the time. So every Saturday I would go home every time after school I'd go home, and then I'd be taken, one of my cousins or somebody would lift me into the shop, and then I'd turn around and spend all my day stacking shelves, dusting things, flushing, brushing things and cleaning things. And very rarely would I serve a customer. So I did all the manual work to start off with, because my father was a very old school person, and I humbly respect him for this thinking, that you don't, even if you are the owner's son, you don't get preferential treatment. You work everything. You work from the bottom upwards. And I think these sort of ethics were very powerful for my character as a person, as an individual. So it helped me, because he said, never ask anybody else to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. So there's no point asking somebody to clean the toilets or brush the floor or clean the windows if you wouldn't do it yourself.
Right.
So in a humble way. So these are the kind of things I did. And my very first official business was within a retail organization, and we sold things like what we call fancy goods. So ornaments, electronics, presents, gifts, that kind of thing. And I diversified that business to incorporate wholesale of pots, pans, for the catering industry. We sold, in the early bump of 90s, we sold top-up cards, which were for mobile phones, for prepaid cards. Now it's all electronic, but in those days it used to be top-ups. So this is kind of how the first business started off, and it was a retail shop, which then I also took over one of the rental properties that we had. The business itself was actually making a negative turnover. I was 17 years old, and my mum said to me, I think it's time you took over one of the shops. 16 actually. And I said to her, look, I want to become an architect, because we're a family of developers as well. So we develop property, and I was inspired always to see my father with big plans, adjusting them and always amending them with the architects. So this was a very strong inspirational time for me. So I wanted to be an architect because I have the accountability. I'll talk about it a bit later, but the compliancy, the conscientiousness, which is a part of the DISC methodology in my unconscious brain as well, more than most. And so I still love the arrangements of things. So I always wanted to be an architect. So my mum said to me, she said, you can be an architect, study at the same time, but right now we need you in one of the companies. And so being very first time in a real working environment to be the boss, it's easy being the salesperson and maybe cleaning up and buying stock, but actually being the person in control, it was around 17 years old when it really changed my world. So I hope that helps a little bit in there. And what I did basically is the bottom line is that a bit of advice I can share anybody if you're starting a business or running a business or growing a business or trying to raise investment is never give up. You've just got to go. I mean, when I first started, it was not easy. I didn't know what to do. I was always constantly learning at the same time. But I had a self-belief, and the belief is that you can do this. Does that make sense? So that's my opinion on this. And so the first business I ran was the retail shop, which I had 3 divisions inside as well, from wholesale to retail to electronics and stuff of that nature. So we kind of took a very strong move forward. And I turned in around 12 months, that first 12 months, I was turning over around £455,000. And the second year is when I topped around 18, 19 years old when I topped the first £1 million turnover.
Wow. Do you think, very, very nice story, do you think you would have the same path if even without your family wasn't in a business? Like, how important do you think is the environment where you grew up?
Well, I believe it's 3 stages or 3 steps. Initially, it's you as a human being. You've really truly got to know yourself. And then you could say it's the environment. So your friends and your family who are nurturing you, bringing you up. And then the third element is to know what to do with the information. So this is a very clear 3-step process. It's not any one of them. If I showed you, if I can just share it humbly, if I showed you this glass, the modern analogy is to say that this is half full or it's half empty, whichever you want to see it, yeah? So most people say, well, it's half empty. And so you'd say the positive way of thinking is to say this is half full. Does that make sense? So this is an internal perception, isn't it? That comes from knowledge, education. So that comes from the environment, which is step 2. But how I use that information depends on step 1, doesn't it? Because if I don't have the right filters in place, if I don't understand myself, you can spend as long as you want trying to share with me the value of it being half full instead of half empty. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to listen to what you're saying. I will not see your version of the world if I don't know myself.
Right.
It's like being on a map and not knowing where my destination is because I don't know where I'm starting from. So it's the most important thing for me is you must know yourself. You've got to understand your pros, your benefits, what you're good at and what you're not so good at. So your strengths and your weaknesses. And this is the key part in my world. So in my world, you see, this to me is always full. It's never half empty or half full.
Right.
Because inevitably, it may have fluid up to about here, but the rest of it's full of air. So it's still full. There's still something here, right? Atomically, there's still something there on a quantum basis. So here's the point I'm trying to share. We can sit there for as long as you like and say that it was me, the arrogant, it was me who made my business. Well, no, it wasn't. It was me who constantly understood myself, and then I created the right filters to understand A or B or C. But it was the environment, which is step 2, which is the nurture environment. So my parents, my mother and my father, but also to have a successful group of siblings, from my sisters through to my brother, very successful in their own right. So to always see that that's just normal, to accept it as normal is the key point. And then what to do with the information. So the ability to actually use your newly learnt focus. Does that make sense? So this is, I think, quite important in the world. So it's 3 steps. I'll just recap them again. Is to know yourself, know others, and learn how to adapt. So if we could share it in the context of the question would be, would I be different? I think 100%. Yeah, but I think individually myself, because there's a natural self, which is inside me, and there's an adapted self, which is outside of me. I think inside wouldn't change. So I'd still have the let's get this done, we can do this attitude. Does that make sense? So I don't think that's going to change. That's just me. That's my DNA, or what we call nature, rather than nurture. But the speed of success definitely comes from environment as well. So my parents, my siblings, my friends, actually my friends weren't in business, I have to be honest. I'd say just my peer, people I chose to work with were in business. People already, our wholesalers, our suppliers, I used to speak to them for hours, understand what's going on in their brain. I used to talk to my father a lot because at the time he was running a multitude of businesses and he was out of the country or out of the city. And I was looking after the first business that we had, the very one from 1967. So to answer your question more rapidly or much more accurately, the reality is that yes, I think I'd definitely be different if I wasn't born in my family, but I'd still be similar as well. Right. The ability to achieve something, to visualize something, to the eye of the beholder, to see something and then to say, how do I get there? I think that's integral. The speed of that, or how quickly you learn from your mistakes, is definitely due to your environment. Right. And then how you see your environment. So 3 areas, yeah?
How important do you think is the initial capital to launch a business when you're thinking about starting?
Okay, so
if you don't have any resources like financial wise,
so here's where I lead into a bit of psychology, because it's not about having the resources, it's about being resourceful. Yeah. So when we were born, we never had any resources. Yeah, but we built up everything around ourselves in the same place. So if it was for the new listeners, if you're listening and you're thinking, am I thinking of starting a business, or I'm thinking of growing my business, or I'm running out of capital, don't think about being, missing something. Don't think I am missing money or I'm not resourceful, I don't have the money. Well, it's very simple. In order to raise capital or to raise funds, you must have a clear plan. So planning is key. So plan as though you have the money, and then go and find the money or find the relevant steps. For me, if you're starting any business, you should always have a very clear plan. So I happily share a free planning system. So if you ever want at the end, I'll share that link with you. So everybody can run through a whole plan. And design their business properly, see where the pitfalls are going to be, see how much capital they need. But then within the plan, there's financing, but financing also has stages. So being resourceful instead of I don't have money is the key. So if I have an opportunity or a mindset to say, I am going to get this capital, no matter what anybody else says to me or to you as the listener, you're going to get it. So you need to say, there's a gentleman called Seneca, and he's obviously an ancient theologist, amazing knowledge. And he says, if a man does not know which harbour he is making for, no wind is the right wind. Yeah. So you can't get resourceful if you don't even know where I'm going. So the planning is the key. So now let's say if I know, and the answer to this question would be, this is now what I say, the moment the second a man or a woman, by the way, mankind, knows which harbour they are making for, meaning where they're going, any wind is the right wind. That's what changes your mindset into resourcefulness. Then there's a gentleman who's what we call a godfather of all psychology or mindset psychology, positive motivational. And his name is Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn obviously has passed away, God bless him. But he's left some amazing nuggets into the marketplace. And in between these two contexts of, if I don't know where I'm going, no wind is the right wind. And if I know exactly where I'm going, any wind is the right wind, because I can adjust my sails. So the point in the middle sits where you can't adjust or capture wind if you haven't set up your sails in the first place. So this is the mindset. Right. Do you understand this? Yeah. So if you don't have the sail, if you've got the mast, but you don't have the sail connected, it doesn't make a difference whether you're catching wind or not wind. There is no wind to catch. It's like going to go past through. So the first step, he would say, is to set up your sail. And this is where the decision to start a business or to leave my job or to raise capital in funding, these are the key drivers for those things. You must have the sail set up first, and now we can readjust it to say, where are you going? Where have you come from? And is this beneficial to you? So I hope that helps a little bit in explaining. Resourcefulness is the key. If you don't have capital, somebody does. If we go back to the amazing Dalai Lama, he says, the money will come from wherever it is now. There's no more or less or shortage. Today, if we wanted a glass of water and it cost us €1, if you didn't have €1 in your pocket, it would come from wherever it is now. So somebody would say, well, I've got €1 for your water. And there's the first essence of a loan, isn't it? So being resourceful, not resourceless, is the key. So the key is my mindset. Do I know where I'm going? And if that's the case, I set my sail and I can catch any bit of wind, momentum, finance, funding, compounding of good friends and good nurture. But education is key. You must keep stretching yourself, right. Keep learning. I hope that helps a little bit.
Sure. Amazing. What if I know that self-motivation is really important in being happy and successful, but sometimes, maybe for some people it's hard when they're living in an environment where maybe not so positive people around. So maybe what would you recommend if they're missing some inspiration around them?
This is key. So remember I said step 1 is to know yourself.
Right.
Step 2 is to select the right environment. Yeah. So environment, that's your peers, your friends. If your environment is dragging you down, like for example, it could be a parent or a brother or a best friend saying, this is not going to work, you're being stupid, don't invest your money in this, you're going to lose. These pens, what are you doing trying to create a pen? This is a rubbish idea. The reality is to understand, the first thing is understand why you want to do something. I'm giving you a solution to having that negativity around you. So why do you even want to raise the capital to, may I scrap this a second?
Sure.
To create the Pricemania.sk pen. Why do we want to even do this? What is the mission? What's the purpose behind it? What's the benefit to somebody? And then I can sit there telling you until I'm dry of energy, this is not going to work, this is not going to work. Because inside your head, you know clearly that you will become resourceful and you will find the way. What is the strategy behind it? The strategy is to surround yourself with people who are on a similar journey, not the same business, but just a similar journey. Somebody wants to try and move themselves further forward as well. They want to edge themselves. So I've got an environment where, I come into this country, it's an amazing country, Slovakia, and I'll share, I'm sure later, why I'm even here. But I've come here and I've created, with God's blessings, and the universe blessing, if you feel that way, please don't take it personally, an environment of entrepreneurial inspiration. So whatever we do, wherever we are, I have individuals who spend their time to try and come to one of my inspired business clubs, or the business boardroom of some kind, or one of my trainings with blessings. And then soon we'll be launching a social environment as well. So come and surround yourself with people who just may turn around and tell you, do you know what? I'm looking for a pen. And that's from your network and your net surrounding of individuals. So you might turn around and say to somebody, I'm looking for a pen, and say, oh, actually, I've got a pen idea. Can I show you the pen idea? And maybe somebody will say, do you know what? I'll order 5,000 pieces. But that's not going to happen sitting at home watching television.
Right.
So environment is key. Change your environment. If you're finding a demotivation around yourself, it's key to not knowing yourself. But I hope this is helping you, because all of this is threaded into the success of business. Everything that I've ever achieved in life is because of my environment, with the people I choose to spend my time with. Also, to understand the information that they're sending to me, can I filter it correctly? Because only take what's valuable to you. Do you understand this? So keep yourself in momentum. So inspiration, motivation, and then we have manipulation. Yeah, but I'll talk about manipulation later, but inspiration and motivation. Motivation itself is when you get a little spike. So you might go to an event or get some training, or your best friend thinks it's a great idea, or an investor says, I'm willing to put 10,000 euros into your first design. So there's motivation. But once the motivation is sort of kind of achieved, it peaks and then drops off. Yeah. So this energy of motivation is what we call an away from energy. Now, this is key to understand if you want to keep yourself motivated. This is why I'm answering the question like this. On a neurolinguistic basis, psychology, because one of my missions in life is to show people, if you don't have the right psychology, you can't be resourceful. The resourceful finishes, your business is dead. You have to be able to hold your psychology. And then obviously you need funding and finance as well, but the psychology is key. So you have psychology, you have business, and then you have the why, which is your spirit. So spiritual energy as well. So these are the three things that I bring together in a methodology called the Synergist method. But if I've turned around and spent some time, and I believe in my product, and I come to see you, and I've changed my environment of individuals, the only thing that can ever happen is a positive thing. Somebody might say, I think this is a good idea. I don't want any, but I think it's a very good idea, and I think you should go for it. Does that make sense? So change your environment. It's key to success. If I was sitting in a house where everybody just sat in front of a television and had tea and cake, which is what a lot of people think in the UK everyone does, tea and cake, it's like an afternoon tea. If I sat there watching television and tea and cake, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today, because my motivation would be to do something else, watch television. So motivation is what we call an away from energy, just to go clarity again. Away from energy is like if this was a flame and I put my hand above the flame, my intention would be to pull my hand back quickly, right? Is that normal? So I'm pulling it away. But once the flame is no longer underneath my hand, what happens to my hand? It stops, right?
Right.
So, ouch, and now it's here. So it's frozen because I can't keep that pace of 200 miles an hour or 200 kpm of release. I can't keep the pace. So this is what motivation does. Motivation charges you up and gets you in the right space of, you can do this, but it's usually from an away energy. I don't want to be broke, so I can do this. My mum, my dad, my brother says, you can't do this, but my best friend says, I can do this, so I'm going to do this. Yeah? But what happens is that, as I said to you, the motivation drops off. So inspiration is something very different. It's a steady, slow energy, and it's called towards, not away from. Away from is this motivation. Inspiration is a toward energy. So what does that mean? That means basically it's slow, it's steady, but it's constant. Does this make sense? It's constant. It helps somebody. It's you're on a mission. You have a deep why. Why am I even starting this pen? So somebody asks you any question, you're always bringing it back to the reason why you're going to start the context. Does that make sense? You're in a very competitive market, but you're doing very well with Pricemania. But there's a deep why. This is what brings your success to the market. Does that make sense as well? So the key here is to have a toward energy, which is a reason behind why you do this. Because when you're in a toward energy, if you have an obstacle, you just work out how to get past the obstacle because you're on a mission. You're going somewhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hope that helps.
Sure. So right now we are sitting actually in a co-working place or space called 0100 Campus. So what do you think how these kind of working environment helps to be successful in startups or in companies?
So co-working environments and startups or working space. The reality is that this is a very positive movement. Yeah. But it also means that we have to see the world in our own way. So there's a philosophy that I call, it's written by a gentleman called Alfred Korzybski, who's a Polish American. And really, truly, he's the fundamental founder of all what we classify as modern digestible psychology of the brain and motivation and positivity and things of this nature. He writes that we as human beings are meaning-making machines. Everything we do is around a meaning. So if you get your why right, your propulsion power will be quite consistent. If you've got the why in the wrong place, it will still do something. You'll still do something. The act to do something or not to do something is the same. So if I say I'm not going to start my business today because I haven't got any money, I've made a meaning behind that, but I cannot start a business, I cannot be successful because I have no money. Yeah. Alternative, I change the meaning and saying, well, I am going to start my business because my product is just amazing, then you will find resourcefulness and the productization there. But going into the meanings, the question is, what meaning do I make? Because us as human beings, we have different versions of the world, right? Is that correct?
Right.
So he goes on to say that the map itself is not the territory. So the map is a map of your world. Yeah. So every time I see something that I like, it stays in my brain. So the map is in here, but what I must understand is my version of the world is different to your version. So why am I sharing this? I'll share. Because on this side, there is no Pricemania, on this side there is. So if I said to you, can you describe that? You'll probably describe it in saying, on the right-hand side, there's a lid, there's a button at the top, there's a bit of orange, and I might turn and say, well, actually, the lid is on my left-hand side. The clip is on my left-hand side. And I've got Pricemania.sk here as well. And it's orange and this looks like a button, but there's a slope on the right-hand side and you're saying the slope's on the left-hand side. So here is where my perception is different to yours because we're seeing a different aspect, a different angle of the same item. So why am I talking about this? Because now, in co-working environments, the key of co-working environments is for them to understand, a human being to understand their psychology. So there's 4 psychometrics. You have, for example, the base of synagus is DISC. So you have dominant energy, you have an influencer energy, you have a stability energy, and you have a compliance energy or calculus energy. Each one of these has their pros and cons. So I'll give you a vague understanding and later we'll talk more. The dominant energy tends to be the person who doesn't do a lot of details, is very driven. They are growers of companies, they can see it, but they don't like details. The I is somebody who is really energetic and enthusiastic about what they do, the influencer, and they'll start the project like this, but they won't finish the project. They tend to have lots of projects open, so they're constantly opening their brain to start a new business. The S is somebody who is the least likely to start a business because they're thinking about stability and safety. And have I got a consistent income? Can I pay my mortgage? Do I have my children covered? And, bless you, with your new baby in there, with an S energy, you'd be like, well, can I even afford to be at home with my child? Because I have to be at work. Yeah. So there's all these energies, conversations around S. And then the C is strategic, compliant, strategy-driven. It's about planning. It's about steps. Does that make sense? And it's all about the cognitive understanding, the consciousness. So why does that relevance to your question? The relevance is that we are all 4 of them, but at which level? Because if I'm a go-get starter, these co-working environments are very good, but I want more privacy. Does that make sense? Because I want to keep my secrets together. If I was an influencer, these co-working environments are excellent, but I wouldn't get anything done because I'd be talking all day and spending time with my best friends and helping them with their project. And if I was an S energy, the co-working environment would be a little bit daunting, and I'd like to sit in a smaller room in my own privacy. And if I was a C energy, I would not like the co-working energy anyway. I'd like to sit on my own because I want to get my work done. I want to get stuff done. I don't like to be interrupted. So here's the key. The key of this co-working energy is to know the energy you are, and then to utilize the benefit of the co-working environments. So for example, if you know you're a D energy, understand that you still need a private location. If you're an I energy, understand the timetable. I should start and finish on a certain time. Have a task list. In my methodology called the Synegus method, we talk about direct focused thought. And direct focused thought is a process that allows you to focus your brain in a direct manner. So one of the key steps is to have a start and an end finish per action. Yeah. So if you're an I energy, you'll drift in like what we call the magpie approach. You start something and something else looks shiny, so you'll start there. So in co-working spaces, you can come into work and all day and have nothing done because you have an I energy.
Right.
So we need to understand every single person's philosophy inside their head so they can use this co-working energy at the right time. Even a D needs to sometimes talk to people, but they may need to set in their time between 5 and 6 o'clock in the evening. They will talk to people or go to one of the evening events where they can sit and take some education. A compliancy would say, I don't want to do any of this. I want to sit on my own and do my own work all the time. So I think the co-working spaces adds a beautiful dynamic if you know who you are only. That's the key.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about Slovakia and Slovakia entrepreneurs. So I'm pretty sure you met a lot of people here in Slovakia. So if you maybe share your experience where the Slovaks are good at and where we need to improve.
Interesting.
Talking about business.
Interesting. Okay. First things first. I have to be honest with yourself. I haven't seen another place like Slovakia. For me, it's a very amazingly exciting place. And I'll explain why. I'm not going to share this just because I'm sitting in Slovakia. It's been 2.5 years I've been coming to Slovakia. What brings me back? Yeah. So it has to be something specific, right? What brings me back is the sheer ability for these kind of locations where we're sitting now, and people like yourself, that sheer startup energy. People are just vibrant. They want to do this. Yeah, and this is logically because of 1993, 94, 92, 94, that period of time when Slovakia was reinstated at its own energy. The difference I've seen is the age difference between parents and children. Literally, what happens is usually it takes a generation of 15 years to implement a change. This is a social psychology I'm talking about from my experience of studying. What's happening in Slovakia is something unique has happened. It's compressed 3 generations in 1 generation. So what I've been finding here is, I'm not sure if you feel the same way or can understand, that parents and children, or parents and siblings and children, are getting further and further apart in their thought process. Parents are much more, take your time. Don't rush. Actually, get a job. Don't start a business. Yeah, that's not because they're wrong and they're stupid. It's because, bless them, that's the logic that's been instilled through communism.
Right.
Be a part of the number. Be one of everybody else in grey. Yeah. Don't even be a different shade of grey. Be the same shade. Yeah. So you already know there's 4 types of energy. So all these 4 people are going to switch anyway. So they're saying be one energy. Then you've got the new generation, which are revolting against that and saying, well, actually, even if I was going to wear grey, I'm not going to wear grey now. I've had enough. So they're going completely the opposite way. Yeah. Which within itself is a pendulum understanding. When you move a pendulum from this side, it swings across here and swings across here. And slowly, it'll get to a stage where it's settled. Usually takes 3 generations, but now it's all been compressed in 1. Does that make sense? So what do I see here? I see a vibrant community, a country with great skill and opportunity. but a race, a really fast race building up here. The people who get onto the train or the bus, or whichever you want to call it, are traveling at fast speed. And the ones who didn't, they've missed that spot quickly. Does that make sense? So the aim of what I see here is that there's a missing support network. The rich are very rich. And if you had money before in the past, what I've understood from Slovaks is that, well, you must have done something wrong. You weren't honest about your money. But there's a new vibrancy. The vibrancy is of honesty, because I only work with honest people. And the honesty is coming through, where people are being very integrous with the new business models. So I'm loving the space. I'm loving the vibrancy. I love the sheer will. The biggest thing for a person who, if you go by my professional speaking, I globally speak across the world. This is one of my favorite places to speak. And I'll tell you why. So when I share something, looking at your eyes as well, you're intentfully listening to me. Now you're a successful business person. You have a wonderful organization, but you're still listening to it with humility. In your brain, you're not going, well, I already know that. I think this is better. He thinks he's stupid. He thinks he's really clever. This is the mentality that I'm finding here. It's really warm. It's very heart-centered and think, I'm really humbled to have this information from you. And the best thing you could ever do is if somebody's listening to you and you're singing, and you've got somebody who's really enjoying your music and you're playing a piano or you're singing beautifully, it makes you sing even better.
Right.
So this is the kind of thing that I feel when I come to Slovak, and that's part of the reason why I keep coming back again and again, because everybody, I work with a lot of multi-millionaires here, and even people who haven't even started their first job. My intention is to help everybody. Why? To get them on to that process of starting your business. If you want to be a startup in any way, you need to speak to me. I'm helping you all the way through. I'm here every month on the fourth week of every single month. So my intention here is to help in a humble way. So I hope I am helping as well. And what I can say is the traction and the love and the attention we're getting is hopefully doing something like that.
Yes, thank you. And the other part of the question was where we need to improve the Slovak when talking about entrepreneurship and business.
We need to basically improve on communication. The honest truth is, because the two generations are so far apart. Being successful is not to reject your family, and being conforming to your family is not being successful either. Does that make sense? So I think there's a big need in Central Eastern Europe, for specifically Slovakia, where they should truly learn themselves and learn how their parents actually had to think about things. Because I've spoken to a lot of young people here, and they've actually used these words themselves. I've got nothing in common with my parents. We're just totally different. They are always having aggressive conversation with me. You're wasting money. You're buying things you don't need, and you're going on holiday and parties and stuff. And I want to do these things, yeah. But the reality is, in my opinion, I think the bottom line comes in is if you do anything within reason, you must know why. That's my success story from there. And as an organization, as a country, what I see is the biggest depth problem is that each have to accept themselves and kind of respect the opposites. This doesn't mean that all of the elders are people who don't want to start businesses. Remember, the psychometrics are key. But it also means that the young generation accidentally are rejecting the knowledge, the gift, the understanding, the experience from the elders, because this is what I'm seeing. So one of the challenges I'm facing is that people are in rejection mode and they think everything's shiny in Western world. It's amazing in UK and America. That's all I want to be like. Well, I really believe that people in Slovak should hold their own culture as they are. They are a new breed. They're a new energy. And all we're really doing is we're reinstalling a very ancient art, because Slovak was very, very dynamic at one time. So here we are. I say, the biggest challenge I'm facing is the communication between self and elders. Because the moment you get that done, the distraction of this constant tussle of communication between parent and child is not there, and people can direct all of that energy into a nice, focused way going forward. That's what I've been seeing.
Now, imagine you are starting a business here in Slovakia. So how would you start? Would you start locally? Maybe start in local countries, Slovakia, Czech, and so on, or you think it's a better way to start immediately thinking about going global?
Got it. This is a great question. If you look at my website, nearly 10 years ago, and it's actually something I adapted from what my father taught me. I have been schooled very well in business, and this comes second nature to me. From 3 years old, people were saying to me all the time, my mother used to say to me, "Oh, you're going to be a businessman. Oh, you're going to be a businessman." So it's always been in my head. Yeah. So on my website, I actually have a quotation. The quotation says, think globally. So let me explain that. Think globally, act locally. So think globally. Your business needs to be scalable. In this day and age, with applications, I have good friends of mine who create applications like Be in Touch. These are modules. They're all clients of mine and good friends of mine. Stan, who owns that business, these are people who are helping people get their message out into a bigger audience. So in that context, you should always think about your business being a global player. But once you've done that, you need to then draw the big picture and then scale it back and say, what do I need to do today? So think globally, but act locally. So you need to take actions. Yeah. So there's no point getting completely caught up in this lovely big dream and then never do anything with it. The point is to get the big dream down on a piece of paper, on a big plan, and then scale it back and say phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. You can probably have more phases, but that's a good start. So my advice on think globally, but act locally means get your business started, please. If you have an idea, get it started.
Actually, in the last couple of years in Slovakia, I think we are following a trend getting back to local products, local services. Do you follow any of these?
In Slovakia or
in general,
yes.
like buying more from local people, groceries and stuff.
Yes.
So
this is an absolute inevitability. Let's go back to the giants of this world, the giants Google. Okay, so Google took this is now 2007, 2008. Google took a complete 180 degrees turn. Before, they were trying to get everybody's information in the system, so it was all going global. And then all of a sudden, in 2009, 2010, everything became local search again. So individuals where there was niches, if you've heard of Yelp, which is the yellow pages information, they used to fill in that small search criteria of local businesses, and Google spied it into them to give that information on a national, international basis. So 100% all the giants have gone back into local. Our mentality, our philosophy is now to start getting traction to your local environments. But those models are still scalable. Does that make sense? So you can still support local infrastructure, support local communities, but you can still scale them. You can then take your business and make it replicable. So the key is to get a process, replication of your business, strategy, structure. It's all about getting the system and the strategy of how to action things, how to get things done, what we call a manual of your business, so it can be properly delegated. This is what makes a business global. But in order to get that information, you have to be local as well. You have to build the business and say, this works. So in my philosophy of growing companies, I always go with power of 3. So I open up a restaurant, for example. I would open up a second restaurant and still own it fully, and then possibly open a third restaurant. Once you've got what we call 3 restaurants, you definitely will have a system that you're replicating. Do you get that? So then creating that process and that system is absolutely key. And that's the difference between scaled businesses and non-scaled businesses, the strategy. And my advice, if it's not your cup of tea, if you're more of a dominant thinker, more of an influential thinker, you don't know the details, or you're an S energy, which doesn't like the risk of growing, bring somebody in. Get a consultant, somebody who thinks bird's eye on your business if you're already growing the business. Does that make sense? So that you're not personally connected with it. So bring somebody in, let them see how your business is functioning and working, and let them adapt your business so that you can grow properly. And pull to somebody else's experience and strengths as well. So that's the kind of things I do with companies. I show them, readjust the organization and say, right now, this is your process. 1, 2, and 3. So now these 3 places run a constant business. Now we can replicate the business and create a global entity. Does that make sense? So I would definitely go local, create your first or second. Local doesn't necessarily mean in Slovakia. Local means where you live. So if you're a Slovak or a person who's not even here, lives in England, do it in England, do it in UK, do it in France, do it wherever you are on the globe. Do it locally, get the business right, replicate it again, create a system and process, and off you go. Investment, by the way, just so you know, investment is done by this kind of thinking. The new dynamic angel investors are not They're not just looking at your figures only. They're now looking at your mentality. What is your outlook? What is your framework? What is your thinking? That's the way I say it. So try to replicate your business and then grow your business softly, steadily. And identify, the aim is to predict and identify at what point you need some more capital. And then always answer the question like this: what are the parameters or the psychology or the structure that the funders want to incorporate in my business so that I can raise the capital easily? I hope that answers that question.
Sure. What do you think about the lean startup philosophy?
The lean startup philosophy, in my opinion, is a valid one. Because sometimes lean startup just means proofing your product. The lean startup philosophy, it means that you start with as little as possible, as minimum as possible. Right. But that just basically means that it's the first stage of proof of every company does that, by the way. Right? Which you proof concept, don't you? And proofing concept doesn't get done with anything but a lean understanding. So if you need a pen, you're only going to buy 10 pens if you've got 10 staff. Does that make sense? So everything's in that lean philosophy. Is, in my opinion, the lean strategy or lean startup strategy is actually stage one of every business. And when you've got more money, it just means that you'll play bigger, you'll still be lean. There's always somebody bigger and more profitable than you. Does that make sense?
The thing is that sometimes the entrepreneur never starts the product because he's still waiting for it to become perfect then, but that's where this philosophy would work better, because otherwise he never starts the business,
Correct.
Sometimes happens in my environment.
I fully agree with you there, Michael. So if you look at the 4 compliances, you've got the 4th one, which is the compliant energy. They're the individuals who won't do anything without planning. But sometimes their downside is that, the best side is that they're amazing planners. They'll always get the strategy structure perfect. But sometimes they overthink things and hold on to it for a bit too long. So in these processes, yes, absolutely, that psychometric or the S psychometric lean startup is very helpful to them, because it shows them how they can break down the next steps and stages. So if there's 6 people in the office, only buy 6 tables, 6 chairs, get it very, very perfect. And also the startup philosophy that maybe you could work remotely instead of in an office or paying expenses. Right. So yes, these things go up. They definitely benefit you. But even a person who's a heavy thinker, unless there's a written plan, a structure that they're following, lean just becomes not an enabler, it becomes a disabler. Does that make sense? It holds them into frustration, procrastination, tells them to stop doing things, but they're not quite sure whether they've got all the what we in England would say the ducks in a row, or all of the steps clear.
Right.
So I love lean steps, and I think the lean steps is always the start. I mean, I think in business, by the way, guys, I'm going to be very clear. If you're lavish with your business, that means you're being irresponsible. Because in business, it's about ROI. So if you want to help somebody, make sure you've got a clear plan. So everything is actually lean always. The mentality, you shouldn't be spending 50 euros when you can do the same job in 10 unless there's an absolute benefit of it. There's an absolute benefit. So that's my philosophy. Right. So I love lean startup. I think proofing a concept is lean always. Mm-hmm. And then you take it to the next stage of ramping it up. Then you look for funding and stuff like that. Because whenever I get investment or think about investing in organizational companies, it's kind of what I was talking about at Forbes last month as well. I was also on the investment panel helping with Forbes. My first question is always, how much effort, how much money have you actually put in the project yourself? Do you actually truly believe in your own product? So these are key core areas which have to be lean, don't they? You haven't got £1 million, you haven't got £1 million. If you need $1 million, but you've only got 10,000, you'll start the business in 10. So just be resourceful. That what I was talking earlier on, become a believer. That's what it is. Becoming a believer, positive believer.
Amazing. In my final part, I'd like to talk about leadership and leading people. So maybe my first question would be how to become a leader. Actually, if you think you're not,
Very true. This is a brilliant question. Actually, it's not a basic question, because being a leader, one thinks you have to be a leader, you have to stand in front of a stage, or you have to be the CEO of your organization, or an MD, or whatever it is. Being a leader is back to my synagogue 3 steps, isn't it? Because if you don't know yourself, and you don't lead yourself, there's no steps forward, is there? It doesn't make a difference how I put you in front of somebody. You'd still be in what we call fragmented mode. You'd still be thinking, well, I don't know if this is going to work or if this is not going to work. Does that make sense? So one of my philosophies, I was trained, which is nearly 7 generations of understanding that's come down from my father. My father said my grandfather, his father told him, and his father told him before that, is to be a leader. He didn't use the word leader. He said to be successful. Yeah. You need to see the similarities in people and not the differences. Now let's get really close with this conversation. Let's get deep into this. If I'm looking at the fact that you're wearing a shirt and I'm wearing a jacket, you're looking at a piece of paper and I'm not looking at a piece of paper. You have a glass of water and I don't have a glass of water, for example. If I start looking for these similarities, these differences, no matter what I think I'm going to do, I can actually never be a leader. The moment leading is rapport, leading is inspiration, leading is vision, leading is planning. All these things are all part of leadership. It's more as well. I don't want to take up too much time. But I can only get to that position, Michael, if I've understood me and if I believe in similarities of humankind. Because if I believe that mankind is nothing but somebody who's going to rip people off or steal from other people, then I'll never have a collaborative mindset. Does that make sense? But if I have a belief in humanity, an actual fundamental belief that most people are good people, they don't want to hurt people, they don't want to take money from people that they haven't got, and they can be quite honest and integrous. Does that make sense? These are my leadership understandings because I must see others through my eyes. And my eyes have a filtration in them. So I choose that filter. If I choose the filter in saying that there's nobody like me, arrogance, there's nobody like me, I'm the only positive-minded person, I'm the only motivated person, I'm the only honest person, I'm the only resourceful person. All these things create nothing but ignorance. It's ego. Ego creates ignorance, blindness. Does that make sense? Nothing else. You will guarantee to make mistakes. But if I look for the similarities and say, do you know what? I really like the way that we're sitting at a table together. You're wearing a shirt and I'm wearing a jacket, but you're wearing a blue jacket, I'm wearing a blue jacket, so I'm looking for similarities, aren't I? So the moment I add the similarities or say that I've got a beard and you've got a beard, now I'm looking for similarities. I've got a nose and you've got a nose and you've got 2 ears and I've got 2 ears and you've got 2 eyes. So I'm starting to really power up my similarities with you. Right. The only benefit would happen is we'd have a more synchronized, humble, spiritual rapport connection. And the only benefit that can happen with that is it'll tenfold your success. So being a true leader is to lead yourself. We've all heard of the understanding saying, become the leader you want to be led by. But you can't be that unless you know you. Does this make sense? Right. And this is the core element of my Discovery Foundation course. I think I've got over 100 plus people now in Slovakia alone, not Vienna, not the other countries, just Slovakia alone, where we have actually identified and helped individuals in one course. Is it okay to talk about this course?
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. So in one course, in one day, one discovery day, it's called the Discovery Foundation. My methodology is called the Synergist method. We use DISC as a base in parts of it, but it's much deeper than this. We're using peripherals of entrepreneurialness, humbleness. We're looking at strategy, structure, but we're also looking at leadership control. So in that one day, you come in the morning and you leave in the evening knowing yourself, knowing how to adapt and identify other people's psychometric, and knowing how to step from yourself to the other person. Does that make sense? Yeah. So actually using the right strategy, knowing how to use the right strategy to help them. So being a leader of others is first of all to lead yourself. You can't lead yourself if you do not know yourself. This does not mean become arrogant and become self-believing and I'm going to lead myself. It means actually the exact opposite. The more you know yourself, the more humble you become. The more helpful you become, the more cradling and supporting you become, because that is true leadership.
Right.
Pushing somebody and requesting have 2 different energies. when I was taught younger, my father used to say to me, there's two ways of saying something. And one will get an answer of positive yes, and one will get an answer of positive no, of a negative no. And I said, really? Is it that simple? He goes, yeah. Because if you tell somebody to do something, they probably won't like to do what you're asking them to do. But if you ask them, because they'll more than likely do it. So for example, the example that I was given when I was a child was a newspaper. So give me that newspaper has a very particular energy. Okay, if you're younger than me, or if you're a sibling, or if you're an employee, you might say, okay, here you are. But it doesn't change the fact that you don't feel very happy about the fact that you just forced to do something. But if I said, oh, that's a nice newspaper over there, can I just have a, what does it say over there on this point? So now I'm connecting with you, inspired with you, and say, do you mind just passing that to me? Can I have a read of that quickly? I'm sure you'll be humbled to say, yeah, have a read. And you'll pass the book to me or the newspaper to me and let me read that panel quickly. Does that make sense? And what happens there is when I've read it, I can then just take 1 minute of my life to turn and say, that was really helpful, thank you very much. You know, I learned this from this article. And thank you for giving me the chance. Handing the book back, handing the newspaper back, and off you go, and you become a natural leader. Does that make sense? So humility is your natural leading. It's not like the political agenda where people dictate. Dictatorships are not leaderships. You know, humble, honest balance of oneself. Remember, think globally, act locally. Or think about other people's worlds and how I can influence them. But first things first, learn yourself. So we get back to the local. So I think it brings a beautiful philosophy back together. If anybody wants to unlock their inner potential through psychometric training, it's one day. And if you're worried about who it's for, it's really simple. This is for somebody who knows they should upgrade their mindset to become more successful in what they are doing. So whether you're in business, whether you're working, whether you're a husband, a wife, whether you're a parent, a brother, a sister, whatever you are, if you want to be the best at your day, because we've got one chance in this life, we might as well be the best, right? So if you want to be the best, this course is for you. If you're a person who cannot understand whether this is going to be valuable to you, whether it's viable, whether you're going to whether it's going to be academic enough, or whether it's going to be strategic enough, let me tell you, every single thing is beautifully designed and beautifully understood where you would understand exactly everything with a flow, a beautifully synchronized flow. Everything will be backed up with education, backed up with psychology, but also with business experience. And if you're an individual who thinks, well, I kind of like that, but sometimes I'm a person where I get bored, or I fall asleep, or I'm not sure if I'm going to learn this information, guess what? It's for you as well, because we have practical days. We stand up and we have lots of interaction, lots of conversation around this. And the one thing that's key in my world, my mission, which is to inspire and create change in the worlds of others. This is my mission. So if anybody asks me a question, much the same as you've been asking me questions today, I hope in a humble way that I've delivered those messages that I wanted to share. And more importantly, that I've answered every question. Probably more than what was expected, but whatever it is, I hope it helps. So this is the same nature that I have when I'm in the room. So I really care. I'm ensure that you understand everything that I share, that it's integrated. So I kind of take the responsibility, and it's my responsibility. I delivered a private corporate training last week for 3 co-founders of an organization, an architectural company actually. And the delivery, the answer to the end of it was, we are so different as owners, and I don't understand how we all understand exactly what you were saying. So some were the vibrant, some were the angry, I want to lead the way, and other people saying, look, I'll help you. But everybody understood it, because that responsibility is mine. I take it very seriously. Whatever business I've been involved in my world, I've aimed to become a symbol of integrity and honesty, but also competence in that arena. So I want to be the best that I can help people with. I've got trained trainers, but in this country I train myself, which is really a bit of an added bonus, I suppose, to an extent for me, because I'm very excited, but also firsthand because I've written the Synergist method. It's my power method. The book will be coming out later this year, but at the moment we're doing a bit at a time. So I hope that helps. If anybody wants to attend this, just contact yourselves, or I'm sure when we see the video at the bottom, just put Pricemania 2017, and we'll know, and we'll give you a 5% discount from the actual cost of the training as well,
Right.
and anything we offer. I hope that helps.
Okay, amazing. Okay, maybe my last question of this interview. If you can name 3 recommendations, points, anything that small and medium business companies who mostly follow our videos can actually use immediately or tomorrow to change their business, to get better, to improve something very
Hands-on, something practical that they
can. Exactly. Yes. So if you can name some points.
I'll be quick and very, very simple. This is a process. Inevitably, you need to become aware of yourself, right? I've already shared this 3 or 4 times. So in context, the dominant energy needs to know why they are in business, full stop. So what is the purpose? Why am I even in business? What am I trying to achieve? The dominant energy, the D, wants to be what's called a world change person. Yeah, they have the big visions, big pictures. So get very clear. So my advice to the D dominant energy is to get a pen and paper, which is not your natural style, I know. Usually they just talk about it or see it in their head. But please get a pen and paper and get very strategic and write down, not in too much detail, every single thing, like a mind map basically of everything that you're trying to achieve, and then connect them. So you can see how you're going to get there. So a person who's compliant, a person who tends to be the overthinker, the person who wants the details all the time, for them my advice would be, because if you're in business, you want to amplify your business, is to have it down on a piece of paper, design the structure and strategy, and break it down to smaller steps, because you'll get them done. If it's like, I need £1 million for the next step, okay, so let's break it down. What exactly do I need for that first step to be done? I only need 10,000. So it's nice and simple, go and find that 10,000. Yeah. The D energy is, they just go and get it done, and they don't do the planning. So for the D, I want them to get planning. And for the planners, the C energy, I want them to be a little bit more detailed and get much more strategic with the steps. The person who's the I energy, the one who wants to start every business again and again, ask yourself, if you want to catapult your business to pure success, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? And when you know yourself that I really like vibrancy, I love to help people, I love to be focused with them, here is where you're going to turn around and look for variety in your day. Get the plan, get the big vision, and look for variety. Become the person who's the catalyst to meet people and make sales. Does that make sense? So don't forget to do the things you love. And then if you're an S energy, immediately today, you need to basically pull extra people in who have the other energies in focus. And be detailed about why you're in the business is to help somebody, to structure them, to support them, and be very drilled and focused on that. But my suggestion is make your why bigger than your I don't think we can do this energy. So as a whole, become aware of yourself, get strategic, get big vision, get the starting energy to sell, because selling is the bloodline of your business. And also get a connection between you and your staff, get a momentum, get a team, get a vibrancy, a belonging. Yeah, make sure you're branded and lovely so people feel they're a part of something and they're respected in that space. And you can only do these things by educating yourself in a psychometric format. So my first opinion, my hope that's helping people with what they can do next. Any business at any level requires steps of strategy, because even if we have a big vision, we accomplish something, and then sometimes something bigger comes. So we still need an external energy. My suggestion, start to trust people who have taken that journey and get yourself a mentor. If it's me and you feel that I'm connecting with you and on a spiritual level or strategic level, please reach out. Don't hold back. Go and do something different today that your future self will thank you for. That's my suggestion.
Sukhi, thank you very much for having you here. It was an honor to have you here at the Pricemania Academy.
Thank you.
So I hope to see you very soon. I hope you liked the interview, and if you guys have any more questions, please free to get back to Sukhi or leave a comment, and hope to see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.